All right. Good afternoon. Today we're going to be going over the updates for the reinforcement learning project where we were trying to get an AI to beat Pokemon Red. We had been roadblocked by Cerulean City, causing trouble with, I shouldn't even say Cerulean City, with Mount Moon, trying to get to Cerulean City. What had been happening is somewhere along the way, the agent dies or blacks out during Mount Moon, and then it gets sent back to the Pokemon Center. Right by it, it then tries to continue making its progress, but it stops receiving the exploration score, and it's still getting small points for leveling up Pokemon, but really nothing else. And then the penalty for blacking out was enough to cause it to basically be removed from, not be removed. It basically caused it to lose exploration rewards because of the changes that we had made last time, where when it had blacked out, the exploration reward was being reduced. So the, I think it was, is dead? Died count. So I would go to the scene chords dictionary and pop out the last 50 items whenever it had last fainted. The problem with this was basically it's losing significant rewards for every time it blacks out, and so it completely stops trying to progress its exploration. It will still try and level Pokemon, but for the most part, it had been hanging out in areas where it was knew it was safe. So it was hanging out like in the corners of town, and here's a few different versions. One had literally here gone back to the beginning of the game areas, try and find anything. Another version here basically just started hugging all the corners, not really doing much. And then this one started hanging out in the Pokemarts because it could buy a couple items until it ran out of money. And then it would fight a few battles. It would go back to the Pokemon Center and heal to at least get the heal rewards plus the level rewards along the way. So unfortunately, not too great of progress there. This is the one I had left running for the longest amount of time. I got like almost 50 million steps, but not able to actually make it through the Mount Moon area. And then there were a few other iterations where I had attempted here. This one had actually crashed as soon as it was about to complete the first iteration. So overall, not great output here in terms of the model, and really struggling to complete Mount Moon and get through to the Cerulean Gym. Because once that happens, it starts to rapidly accumulate rewards again. You have the gym itself is worth a number of points because you have four events that you can get there, plus the rewards for the gym, plus exploring a new area. Nugget Bridge, as it goes out north of Cerulean City, is full of trainer battles. I think there was something like almost 20 battles along the way there to get the bill. So it's like we're literally trying to go through the mountain in terms of getting Mount Moon. There are 11 trainer battles, and it's there's a 10% encounter rate in the area. So 4%. So every step that you take in the game, you have a 4%, or in the Mount Moon area, have a 4% chance of encountering a wild Pokemon. And what ends up happening is it tries over and over again to make it through that area. It'll die maybe 5 or so times in terms of blacking out, and we'll give up trying to progress there, and we'll go back to other areas in the game trying to capture any remaining wards because it thinks it has basically maxed out its progress. So an idea here is that instead of 50, we could increase this even more to something like 100 or 150. So these are the coordinates that it touches on the map. Do I still have this tab open? I don't. If we look at GitHub, right, so how it's calculating the exploration score is for every square that it steps on, it adds that to a dictionary, checks to see if it already exists. Sorry, checks to see if it already exists, then tries to add it to the dictionary. If it does, then you get the reward for the score based on how large the dictionary is. Is you can make it through this first floor, and so okay. So I realized that my mic was muted. I don't know when that clicked on, but what had happened was the I had a version running, and that was causing my computer to slow down. And then I'm pretty sure it restarted the stream, or at least I hope it did. It's showing us that I'm live. The idea that I was discussing was going through Mount Moon and trying to find a way to allow it to basically capture the exploration rewards. So if it dies, it's going to lose 200, or not lose, I guess lose 200 items in the reward table, but that's being reduced by 0.4. So you're going to get like about an 8% loss in your exploration score. Now it's, or not, I shouldn't say 8% loss, an 8-point loss, hopefully, or roughly, in terms of exploration. And the idea for that is because this area is probably, if you touch every single square, going to be in the 300 to 400 step range. Hopefully, it hits the point where, as it's progressing through, it can kind of re-find the best path and not shy away from doing the area. What we had seen in other versions was that it was hanging out in the corners and no longer trying to even battle, because once it would die, it would lose a massive amount of reward points. So the hope here is that it continues progressing, learning to use Pokemon centers. What I had seen was the the heal score was starting to get larger. Over time, the heal score will actually overtake the level rewards. So from what I'd seen, it was getting about 20 to 30 points for the levels. If you remember last time when we did that, it gets 10 points for the, or 1 point for each of the first 10 levels. Then the next 20 levels are half value. And then after that, it's a quarter per, or quarter point per level. The idea here is we don't want it to spend too long trying to just level up the Pokemon. We want it to keep going and exploring. Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. It's 10, and then we go to 0.25 per level, and then after that, 0.125. So um, this may honestly just not even be useful here because it's cutting the reward down too much. We still would want it to get things. I guess it's still getting points through the trainer battles in terms of events, but um, it's at least worth consideration to take that out. And um, the hope here is that we can teach it to train up some Pokemon and get through Mount Moon. So that was the idea of letting it get there. There's 6 because the Pokemon starts at level 6, but then 20 additional levels after that. However, it chooses to split those up. What typically ends up happening in the cases where it can progress pretty far into Mount Moon is because it happened to capture a Pidgey and start leveling that when its Bulbasaur had gotten knocked out. So Pidgey is really good for Mount Moon because the only Pokemon that really gives it trouble is Geodude in there. Everything else, it has like a reduced damage versus and deals pretty good damage back against because Gust in this is a normal move. And so the flying means that the Zubats, which is most of what you encounter, won't particularly deal a lot of damage to it, and you can level it fairly quickly. Let's see here. Hey, Ash. Just trying to go through the results from letting the AI run for almost a week. And basically, it had not made any progress. It was dying too much in Mount Moon and starting to shy away and hide in corners. So I had reached out to one of the people in the Discord. They gave me permission to try and use their code repo that's using the puffer lib. The idea here, or the reason why they let me do that, is because they're curious how it would run in a low compute environment. They run their stuff on a server. I think it has almost 200 gigabytes of memory, versus I'm on, a 16 gigabyte laptop that had been running into issues with another version of the puffer lib. So after this, we're gonna get that set up on its own virtual environment in Ubuntu and hopefully kick it off, and we'll see how well that goes. So discussing what we had changed last time, we changed the scaling for the level, and we had also removed some of the some of the exploration coordinates, so that way it can hopefully go back and recapture those fairly quickly. Last time this was only at 50, but I quickly started to realize is that Mount Moon itself is fairly large here. Even just this first floor is roughly about 200 coordinates for it to cover. And so if it made it into the second floor kind of on its way out, uh, it would not really get any points for exploring around here and eventually stop. So I took it up to 200. I'm going to give that a shot after I get the other repo up and running, because I'm curious to see if I'll run into the same issue where I run out of memory on the computer and it can no longer actually proceed, because the last version that I had would make it through Mount Moon to Cerulean City and then crash out there with the added memory. So last time I ran that, about 30 to 40% were making it and completing Misty. And then the other ones were in various spots. Some were still in Mount Moon. Some were exploring the area just outside of it. There's that grass patch there trying to level up a little bit more. But the idea here, hopefully, is that we can have that get through. So as far as that goes, or as far as the baselines version goes, that's as far as we got. I'm going to close this out now. I'm going to spin up Ubuntu again. All right, so let's do this. share this out in the chat. This is the version from that guy that I got permission to run. He had been able to successfully get through the game. He's working on a sweeps version, which is allowing it to do hyperparameter tuning. Like I said, his curiosity was how well it would hold out in my low compute environment. So I had just done git clone and pulled that down. You can see his version here is the Pokémon Red puffer repo. So I want to go there. I want to go Python 3 vn call it that guy. Make sure I'm doing that right. No. Let me go back here. Knew I was missing something. We're just going to call it that guy since he is the one who's got it. Give it a moment to set that up, and then we'll go through. Perfect. Then source, that guy, slash bin slash activate. And then this is just from that link I had shared out. You're going to use the requirements file for a pip to install everything that it needs. This may take a few moments to go through. I already have a version of this on the machine, so I'm hoping that this will go well and not take too long. Given that it's a new virtual environment, though, we'll have to go through and install things like SciPy and stuff like that. Uh-oh. Oh, I had this version with mine too. Yeah. Okay. Deactivate. And then what is the okay. If it's still there? No, it is not. Okay. Now Python 3.11 m in that guy. So if you're using WSL, I'll get back to the gotcha. Yeah, Ash. I kind of started not necessarily putting this on the back burner, but because it takes so long between updates right now with having to let it run, I do this like once or twice a week, providing an update here as it will generally run in the background while I'm working on other things. And then I kicked off a series on the NFL's Big Data Bowl, which is a Kaggle competition. The NFL provided a bunch of data from games in 2002, and you're trying to use what information you have pre-snap to predict the outcome post-snap. Now, instead of this being something definitive, they left it open-ended. So there's two tracks there. One, you can they call it the metrics track. You're just trying to aggregate information, and then there's another track called the coaching track where you will actually be having your stuff presented to members of NFL teams, and then the top responses all get the opportunity to go out, meet with the NFL, do their presentation, uh, and then get rewards. So I think they invite 10 out from each category, and then the top five in each one get 12 grand, and then the next five each get 5 grand just for being uh, invited out. So I think it's a really cool opportunity. Um, my personally, are you still going to buy GPU for Black Friday? I'm still on the fence about getting a GPU because it seems like from discussing with some of the other people here, they literally have like a server block that they're using personally. And for me to upgrade the computer significantly would be quite costly. We're talking like $3,000 to $4,000 um, to get something that is much more reliable than the laptop that I have here. So what I'm thinking about is if I just can find a, I want to call it like an older server that already has a bunch of RAM installed to it, and see if I can get that and find a space to set it up to run off that. But for what I'm doing generally, I don't know that it's really worth it for me to go out and get a GPU. I think the prices are still quite high, and in general, I don't need it for the work that I do on a lot of these projects. Like the Kaggle competition, you have a generally defined environment. You can use Kaggle notebooks, which are basically collabs, um, to do your work there. A lot of my work that I do, just having this laptop is plenty for what it's need to be run on. And it would only be like if I were thinking that I can push uh, this project to completion in terms of really needing some powerful compute. So in my mind, it's just not really uh, worth it to justify grabbing a computer with a GPU right now because it doesn't make too much sense um, to do that because I would only be using it for like these side projects and not anything I'm using in my day-to-day work. So coming back here, trying to do the update. Yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah, yeah. I mean, in general, for like this is mostly side project work. What happened here? Oh, I didn't activate the environment, did I? No. Um, source, that guy, /bin/activate. Now I should be able to do that. And we'll let that run and install the things. Yeah. Um, yeah, Ash, what are your plans for it? I know you had been running everything with the Q learning, and I know you had put it on Black Friday or put it on the back burner. Are you still going to get like a bigger compute environment, or are you just kind of going to let it run in the background? Like, use that cache, which is nice. Installing all the CUDA libraries. Let's see. project diverted from the initial goal rather than trying to beat the game, more than making it possible to do any. Gotcha. So you're just trying to make a general algorithm that can be used for anything. Yeah. Kind of a library to custom parameters for a set algorithm in a GB game. The challenge here is that there's so much variety, even at the Game Boy level, for what you're going to see. I've been in that reinforcement learning one. They have a guy who's using it to beat Super Mario Land, and it's interesting here because each of the levels are self-contained, which makes it much easier for training a model because you can start at a specific stage, train a model to beat that stage, and then it keeps it in its memory along the way. So that way, when it encounters that, it knows how to do it. And so he had already gotten it up to, it was like in World 3 on that. Um, and it started to hit a point where it was able to lift things that it had learned from the previous stages to quickly learn the other stages. So he was having more progress later than he was earlier, which was kind of surprising that it had kind of learned more of the Mario mechanics in terms of the dashes and jumps that you need to make to get through the stage, and also the game kind of has a natural reset with you going back to the beginning of every level. So in the learning, he just provides it um, infinite lives basically to start the stages so it can learn the process. And then when it's trying to do the run, it uses the default, I believe you start with like 3 lives in Mario and try and make its progress along the way. So he has one now that can, it starts from the beginning of the game and it can make it all the way through stage 3-3. And then I believe 3-4 was like another castle that he was working on and trying to get that there. So looks like it just finished up the training, or sorry, the installation. Now I want to try and run the tune. This may be a little bit different when I'm streaming versus when I'm not, just because there's resources going into the streaming. But um, coming back to what you're saying, Ash, yeah, it'd be great if there was something that you could just have like a pure reinforcement learning library for each like game console along the way, right? So you have Game Boys, there's the Nintendo 64, a lot of those that could be done. Oh, I got to copy the game file over. Okay. And so I need to make sure it's named Red UB. So I'll pull that here. Copy this. Go to Ubuntu directories. Home was Pokemon Red Puffer. And let's rename this. It was looking for red.gb. Close that. Kick it off. What the auto tune is doing here is it is trying to figure out the best versions for you to run. Yeah, it's a good learning project. Get to have experiences with reinforcement learning algorithms, making a library, and playing with dynamic elements. Yeah, it's fun. One of my first projects that I was doing was I was having ChatGPT help me learn Unity coding, basically, where um, I was trying to make a game almost from scratch, very similar to um, why am I blanking on it? Not Castlevania, Vampire Survivors, where I was telling ChatGPT what I had wanted from it. This was almost a year ago now, where I was trying to describe to it what I wanted it to create, and then working through it. I had like no experience with Unity whatsoever, and it was funny because the things that were taking the longest were me actually trying to understand the UI and getting things to work correctly. So um, I had set it up like a beam basically would it should come out of the character in 4 different directions, but they were all rotating the same way. So essentially, instead of it being like in a cross pattern going out from the character, the first one would be a cross, but then the others would have all rotated to be um, like the same way because I had set the orientation wrong in Unity and hadn't realized it. And I just assumed that the code it had provided was bad, but it was my fault on how I had actually put it in there. But I'd spent about 10 hours on that. And essentially, the characters weren't anything fancy. It was just like basic block sprites. And then, destroy the blocks that are running at you. But I was kind of surprised that I could get as far as I did once I got over the initial humps. Installing Unity took like 3 or 4 hours from scratch, just because there were a bunch of, when I had first done the installation, you schedule some settings and I wasn't aware of what were the right ones to set, and I set the wrong ones. I had to uninstall and reinstall it. Uh, what is going on here? Input. So what's happening here? Get command. Input CFG is not an omega config object. What does this even mean? If I pull this up, let's go. It's looking for the omega conf package, but it's pulling that out of rewards, baseline. Let's just make sure that pip3 install. I don't think that this was an issue. It seemed like yeah, it's already there. One and 16. And when I have no idea, I only use ChatGPT for simple things, and when I have no idea where to start. Honestly, I like using it just to bounce ideas off of, so that way could get at least started on creating things, and then bounce them off them. I had gone through and I had set up StarCoder to run locally. So like I had just asked it this earlier today if I could do one for a Slay of the Spire. Is there a way to get API access? It came through and wrote out a big long um, response, but didn't really have a lot of actual information here. I would probably be better served to just trying to Google around and find it. Um, so there's still a lot of limitations here that it's just kind of not aware of, that you have to at least, I think, get going a little bit before you can really start to get some of the value out of things like ChatGPT or the coding LLMs. It does work fairly nicely here in Visual Studio in trying to provide code or trying to be helpful along the way. but it's not always understanding what I'm doing. So like I said, it's been mostly hit and miss as far as the code goes, but I do like it for at least bouncing ideas, and that usually is enough to help me get going in the right direction. So when it goes here to reward config is where it does this, and then this is coming from the train.py. So up a level, train.py. Close to a normal distribution, 75% of the code that it gives you is not state of the art. Yeah, it's it won't know. It really has some blind spots, um, especially if things are not necessarily popular enough. Um, when I was trying to use it as an assistant for things like this, it really was not providing useful information. I just think there's um, not enough instances of this specific niche in there for it to have a good result, because a lot of it's just driven by cosine similarity. So the more things appear associated together, the more likely it is to pull that back. But trying to have it like read the code here and even tell me what it's doing, it still struggles with. Then that tells me like it's not. A lot of people like to say it's got logic, but it really doesn't. It's just trying to look at the things you've given it and try and predict what you would need next, rather than it being having an actual chain of logic going through. So line 78, the reward configuration. The reward class comes from Red gym environment. And that's in buffer. So it's pulling all these in. I don't see anything about the rewards here. So the we try and tell it to go to bufferred.train.autotune. So go to here.
If I tell it to train, yeah, I'm wondering if it's just failing because of. So if I go, where is the config file? Oh, that's rewards. I just seen it a few moments ago and I lost it. The events. Where is my config? That doesn't matter. I'm in the wrong folder. Gotcha. Okay. So set this up. Entity. This project. That puffer. Doesn't necessarily need a group. I don't believe that would be an issue. This is using CPU. I guess I'll leave it that way for now. So this will run for 1,000,000 steps each. That's debug, huh? All right, that makes sense. Only wanting a single instance there. Yeah, number of environments. Where is the other 24 environments, 4 workers, 24, 4 workers, and the batch size was 12. Save this. Wrappers. Who is our user? Jody AI. Okay. Let's try and kick this off the other way and see if we can get progress. Hey, light skin, let me see your question. Hey man, don't want to be a bother, but I have a data structures and algorithm final exam in a week. I was wondering if you could help me with breadth first search versus depth first search, please. I think I understand now. It's just implementation. Honestly, as far as algorithms go, I do very poorly on these myself. Um, in general, for the work I use, these aren't things that I will typically do it. But you want to think about these two as their opposites in the way that you go about getting to your result, right? So breadth first search means you're going to go wide on the first level and try and do your search, where the depth first search, in terms, you're going to go to the bottom of what you can do in terms of your search and work your way back up. So they're almost opposites in the way that they interact. But as far as the best times for you to use one versus the other, it would be difficult for me to do it. Do you have any, difficult for me to provide an explanation? Do you have any examples? I'll leave this up on the screen while I continue to try and get this off and running. And then uh, if I can get that going, then we can just let it run in the background and I can answer your question. Go to my creator dashboard just to see if he's still here in the chat. I don't see it. Okay. I'm guessing I missed his question then. You wanted to answer quicker? Okay, let's see. This looks like it's at least kicking off. Hopefully that will work. Divide this. Here. That they can see what's happening there. And then hopefully we can get this kicked off. I'm going to close this. Make sure we've got enough resources available. And Mexican, were you back in the chat now with a question? Give a moment or two. All right. Not sure if he's in the chat anymore. As soon as I get a response from him, we'll go forward with answering the question. Trying to understand what's happening here now that we kick this off. Looks like it's printing out the beginning. Can we see it if I pull it up here? I cannot tell. Okay. So hard to tell if it's actually doing anything or not. And let's see. Here. No idea. I know this shouldn't be me because I only have 24 instances running for that to actually be the expected outcome. So I think based on what I just read, it's expecting to beat Brock in about 30 minutes. Time frame of running, I don't know if that's going to be the case with how much fewer
iterations that I have going. Where was that? Here. Uh, so in 30 minutes, it should make it to Brock based on what they have here. 90 minutes for Misty, and then getting cut. So I really don't know if this is actually running. I don't think we're really adding a lot here just by kind of waiting around. So what I'll do is I'll bring the stream down for today. Thanks, Ash, for stopping and asking questions. Then Lightskin Mexican, if you really have any other questions, you can feel free to message me or find me in Discord, and I'll be able to provide answers to you as far as BFS versus DFS. But how to actually go about implementing them is what I think you were looking for. And if that's the case, LeetCode is a good place to go for that, as well as they have a number of examples with tags, so you can get a question and figure out how to implement it, and there'll be a good amount of comments on there as well on doing that. So for those of you who are watching later, we're running on Puffer again, trying to use that guy's repo and seeing how far it can make it. I'm going to say before it crashes, even though the hope here is that it can continue making good progress. So ideally, it would be we come back tomorrow and it's more or less beaten for a part of the game, but we will see how it progresses. All right, have a good night. And then I'll see you all tomorrow where I'll be covering more of the big data bowl progress there. We had made basic models in logistic regression, random forests, and support vector machines. Logistic regression was performing the best for what we had, so hopefully we can keep that progress there. We're going to add in a few more fields to try and see if we can get there. We've gotten 73% accuracy score, and the hope there is that we can get up to the 80 range by the end of tomorrow. Okay, so thank you and have a good night.